Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Is It Bloody Working? I'm JJ and I am joined as ever with Alexia. Alexia, how are you today?
Oh, all good, JJ. It's the summer now, the sun's out, and it's just feeling like the summer's here to stay. So feeling really, really good.
It is really good. We've had a pretty good week as well, haven't we? We've been getting on with a load of things. We've been, going through our business owner's profile,
We
which
had some really good tests. So we've been testing out the business owner profile, which is all about how you grow as a business owner, what your own unique personal growth path looks like. And the testing of that has just been fantastic. And the insights that people have been getting, and what's really clearly coming through is that people suspect things about themselves. They're like, oh, is it that? And I think we all do that. We have a thing where we're like, oh, I think it might be my thing about this, and I'm not very good at this, and whether it's our doubts. We always suspect that there might be some things going on, but we don't really know. And what we've seen from the test this week, the beta test, is that these things that people suspect about themselves are usually they're on the money with it. But seeing it in black and white, and they're like, right, okay, so that is going on. Right, I'm going to sort it out, rather than
yeah,
this kind of this tentative, thinking about it, and they just hold that in their mind's eye, if you like, as a thing that might be going on. Now they've got certainty or clarity that it is going on. Okay, then I need to sort it out. And the other things that they were suspecting don't show up. They're like, oh, I can let all that go. I don't have to worry about that stuff. So it enabled the people that we went through this beta test with to kind of move forward and go, right, I'm going to sort that out because I know that's the thing that's getting in my way. And that was real pleasure to see, actually, in business owners having that kind of those realizations, those aha moments, and validation of, okay, this is what's going on. So yeah, we're really excited to go through the second round of testing with that, and bring that to market as soon as possible.
yeah, we are. And resilience, of course, is something that's really important for business owners. And I was just thinking as you were talking there, of course, um, I have had a good week, but I also had a little bit of an incident at the weekend when I had a fall. And it's just thinking as you were speaking that isn't that a great metaphor for life? So I tripped up on the pavement, fell flat on my face, bruised, grazed. A very kind gentleman came over and helped me get up. I don't know how long it would have taken me otherwise. I was on my way to have a swim, my normal sea swim in the morning. And he said to me, "Are you going for a swim now?" I said, "Yeah, yeah." I said, "No, it'll be great. It'll be great. It'll clean out all the grazes on my legs." I said, "It'll be good." And actually, do you know what? It really did help. Now, yes, I've got a few sort of aches and pains as a result, but they're all clearing up. But it occurred to me that that's a real metaphor for business as well. You fall flat in your face, but it
Yeah,
depends on how quickly you get up, right? And
yeah,
what you do then
yeah, and get back on it.
and get
Exactly,
back on it. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, still hurts, but I'm getting there. Um Today though, that's not what we're going to be talking about. We aren't. We're talking about the practitioner in any therapy or coaching or whatever. How much of how you get on, how you grow is down to your practitioner and how much is down to the method. And it's been really interesting looking at the research on this, hasn't it?
Yeah, because I know that from a lot of people think, especially if they're a practitioner, if they're a coach, if they're a therapist, a lot of it is about you as the person, and you are, when I think about some of the other jobs I've held in the past, and my background is marketing and business and sales and things like that, and so that's very much about the job and your skill and your competency. Whereas when you get into the reflective practices, the coaches, the therapists, yes, there's a lot of the skills going on, but it's a lot more about the person because it's about how you're holding that space. And so what that then immediately invites is, well, where does the line, not the line get drawn, but how much of what they're doing is about them as an individual, and how much of what they're doing is about their skill, their competency, and the method, and all of that. And which is the bit that's making the most impact? That's kind of what we're going to be looking at today, isn't it?
Yeah, it is because we have to acknowledge that um, really a lot of it is down to what you're trying to get through, right? So your own life your own experiences can account for so much. And the method really is important, but the practitioner, how you get on with the practitioner, how they work with you, that's a huge variable. And so we're going to be exploring that a little bit more, because there was a piece of research done in major depression, a trial, and it showed that around 8% of outcome variance, meaning how the therapist was important. 8% of the outcome variance came from the therapist, and effectively 0% on which of the treatments they used. I mean, that is quite astonishing, because what we're saying here is that it's all down
all down to the person.
Yeah, is it?
And actually, when I'm on Twitter, I follow quite a few therapist influencers, if you like, and that one consistent theme that I see in some of the content that they're publishing and the Substacks and things they're publishing is it's all about the practitioner, it's all about the psychotherapist, and it's all about the way that they're able to hold that space. And I, every time they share that, and even when I've had people that have come to me interested in training head trash clearance with me, and I've had therapists say to me, well, it's all about there's a lot of evidence. They're quite happy to point to the evidence around the importance of the practitioner, and use that as a way to support, as a way of saying, well, this is the evidence for psychotherapy. And I thought, well, do you realize what you're saying here? You're not saying that this is evidence for psychotherapy. This is about, you're not putting any credence to the method that's going on here. You're putting it all with the practitioner.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that is what the evidence is pointing to, that it is all about the person and less about the methods that they're deploying. And that does raise some serious questions in my mind.
Yeah, it does. And we've known forever that, some practitioners always get better results, right? We've known this for a long, long time. And it has been shown up in some research. Ricks in 1974 coined the term super shrink after finding that one clinician's high-risk adolescent patients had a far better long-term outcome than another's. So it was like 27% with poor outcomes against 85% with poor outcomes. That's a huge discrepancy, isn't it?
Yeah. No, that's massive. That's massive. And so that does support the fact that it's all about the practitioner. But then see, that makes me think, but where I go to in my head with that is that, well, that is very much about the method being used as well. Because when we think about, one of the things I'm coming across a lot in the work that I'm doing with head trash clearances is, because of my work around birthing and reproductive anxiety disorder, speed is everything. When a woman comes into my practice and she's just found out she's pregnant and she's got tocophobia and a high level of fear, she doesn't have a long time to be able to sort this out, turn it around, to be able to give her the chance of having a great birth experience. So time is of the essence. So I've been very clear with all of my work that I'm all about getting results quickly and fast. And yet when I'm in some therapist communities, they're all about, well, you need to let this emerge naturally. She's on her own timeline. We need to make sure that, she feels safe for this material to emerge. It's like, no, we don't have that time. Women in that situation do not have the luxury of time. However, if you think about the methods that a lot of these therapists are deploying, which is about creating a safe space for the material to emerge naturally, then obviously that's all about the person creating that space in the first place. Because if the patient or the client doesn't feel held in that space and doesn't feel safe, then that material isn't going to emerge naturally. Now, as a contrast, what about if you've got a method that just brings everything to the surface anyway, and it's not about the practitioner being able to create that space, it's about having a tool that will drag it out of the depths of your being. Now it's less about the practitioner, because actually there's a method that does that, which doesn't rely on the practitioner and their space holding capability. Not to say that that isn't still an important factor, but now we're not relying on that as the engine for the personal realizations and the subconscious work. There's something else at play. So I think we're getting in a tangle a little bit with some of this, because the practitioner is everything argument stacks up really well with this is how we go about doing inner work methodology, which is mainly psychotherapy. Whereas if we start approaching it differently and there's a different methodology, then maybe it's less about the practitioner. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
I think that, I think that you are making a very good point there, and that sometimes the method works all on its own. I've seen it happen. I've seen people have great results very quickly because of the method that's been used. It's got nothing to do with the practitioner. It's the method. The client is doing the work themselves because they're employing the method. Actually, that's and that's partly what head trash does, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and I'm all about I think it's about the method, because for me, it's important to have something that's repeatable, that is a process that anybody can just pick up and do, because that's what truly empowers people. If we're putting all of the responsibility or all of the onus on the practitioner to be the one that is the deliverer of change, then we are stacking things up in a very imbalanced way. We're forcing people to have to go and see this special person that has this special ability to bring this stuff out of them, as opposed to allow them to be able to do this themselves. And it reminds me of the church. You can only access God if you come to see one of our priests. Yes. You can't possibly do this on your own. You need to come into one of our special buildings and give us money every week as part of the thing. And that's the only way that you will be able to see and connect with God. It's that idea. It's like, no, we can do this on our own. But it hasn't been set up that way. I realize I've opened up a whole can of worms there.
I was just going to say, that's, it could have been me speaking there, could have been me talking there, because that's one of my big things. It's taking responsibility for your own state and your own healing. And a lot of the work that's been done in the world today doesn't allow you to take responsibility for it. You put the responsibility on a healer, a therapist, whoever. And that doesn't get you where I think we can be, right? You're constantly handing over your power. But again, we're getting off topic here. Constantly handing over your power to another because you think they know better than you.
Yeah. And the model where the practitioner is the engine for that facilitates that, perpetuates that. Whereas if we shift the way that we go about delivering personal and internal change into a model whereby, yes, the practitioner has a role to play, because obviously, if you're sitting in a one-to-one setting with somebody, you want to feel comfortable with them. You want to go to the session in the first place. If you don't like them, then you're not going to want to do that. So you need to want to go to the session, because without the session, then it's not going to happen. So there's a very sort of simple level of a basic level of having a human being that's a decent person to spend time with, or one that makes you feel comfortable to do this kind of work. But that's a very different position to this whole idea that I'm the one, that you will only be able to access this part of yourself through the space that I'm going to create in my office, and you need to come and see me every week in order for us to maintain this container that allows you to explore this within you. That's very different. And I'm much more of the view that we need to give people the tools to be able to do this whenever they want and whenever they need. And maybe this is why we've got mental health crisis on our hands, because we're bottlenecking it through this way of working. But let's get back on track.
Well, no, but I think it's important to talk about it, right? I think it is important. Sure. Because I think people do need to take more responsibility for their own well-being. And and I think we need to be able to help people take that responsibility, not, take the responsibility for them. Yeah. But yeah, look, let's get back to what we were talking about. So here's another thought, and backed up by research, apparently. Experience doesn't make practitioners better. It may make them slightly worse. I mean, what the hell's that all about?
I know, right? When we were preparing for this episode and I saw this, it kind of shocked me, actually, because when I think about the work that I do, the more you do it, and this is true for many fields of work, the more you do it, the better you become. So what is going on around this when it's the opposite, right? How is it? And this is what the research that we found, where this was Goldberg, where it said it tracked 170 therapists and more than 6,500 patients. Outcomes did not improve with accumulated experience. In fact, they showed a small but significant decline. So they're getting worse.
I know.
And this was replicated.
Yeah. Yeah. And there was another German study that replicated that as well. They found outcomes slightly worse later in careers. How? I
Well,
mean,
when I think about that, there could be many reasons for that. Like, how is it? Maybe they're getting complacent. Maybe they think they're better than they are. Maybe they're getting burnt out. I mean, there are lots of reasons why people might deteriorate. They're coasting and they're like, well, I don't have to make the effort as much. The clients keep running in, my reputation enables me. I don't need to try as hard because I'm going on, yeah, I've got the momentum in my career and people just keep coming into my practice anyway. So I don't need to keep making as much effort. Maybe there's some of that going on.
maybe. I mean, most of the practitioners, therapists I know wouldn't identify as being one of those people, right? Um, but that maybe feeds into another point that we were going to bring up, and that is that can practitioners really tell how good they are,
Yeah.
right? They may be confident, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're good. And can you know how good you are? Can I know how good I am without validation externally?
Well, that's the thing. And I think maybe with maybe experienced practitioners that early on in someone's career, they're going to be using a lot of supervision. They're going to have a lot of that um, guidance, if you like. Whereas maybe 20, 30 years into their career, they might be thinking, well, I don't need that. I've been doing this long. And so maybe they're not putting in those guardrails that give them that opportunity to have reflection, maybe. Maybe some do, right? So maybe there's something like that going on there. Also, the field of work changes and evolves. So maybe they're not keeping up. When you think about how the field of personal development has changed since it became a cool thing, 60s, 70s, 80s. I mean, that whole industry, all the messaging, all the know-how, the books that you think all of this has changed so much in the last 20, 30 years. And there have been some incredible new modalities. When you think about the rise of energy medicine, the rise of energy psychology, that wasn't anywhere to be seen even more than 15 years ago. So maybe they're just not keeping up also with skills and what's going on today. So maybe there's a sense of the skill level in other across the board is rising and they're not keeping up with that. Maybe that there's so much going on here to unpick that it's difficult to really identify, well, what is going on. This is research because it's from 2022 that outcomes slightly worse, but maybe is it because also in parallel there's a mental health crisis that's going off the charts. Like,
Yeah.
it's isolating these different aspects of what's going on, I think, is quite tricky. But the key point that you said is, how do we know? How do we know how good we are? And so when we are a reflective practitioner, whether it's a coach, a healer, or a therapist, then yes, we have supervision as a therapist. Coaches tend not to do that because they
Right.
don't have the same pressures, the same regulation, and the same, licensing going on. So they don't have that. So and even when you have supervision, what do you really learn? Like, you're getting an opportunity to talk through what's going on, but is somebody assessing your competency and skill? And then it's also very subjective. Like, well, my supervisor Sue says that. Well, is Sue any good? Maybe she's one of these
Yes.
really
Yeah.
experienced therapists that's now much worse than she was when she was 25. Like,
Right.
right?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And plug incoming. That's what we do at Ladder of Growth. We measure those outcomes, right?
Yeah, we've got a therapist growth assessment. So if the therapist wants to know what they're doing, how they are coming across as a therapist, not the skill, not the method, not any of those things, but how are they able to hold space? How are they able to not get triggered by the material being raised? How are they not bringing their own stuff into the session as well and be able to give a clean read and be fully present? These are all things that are not about methodology or competency. These are about the person that shows up to hold that space, right? That's what we're measuring with our ladder of growth. And we have one for coaches coming up soon as well.
Yeah, we do. Because, accreditation means that you know the method, it measures inputs, it doesn't measure the outcomes.
Mm.
So, training hours, modality badges, reviews, that's all great for reassuring you that the practitioner has done the training, they know what they're doing, but it's not measuring the outcomes. It's not measuring how many people actually shift doing work with that person. Now, I'm not saying that we need a scoreboard like that for every practitioner and therapist, but there's nothing really, until now with what we're doing that shows you how things are working, shows you clearly where the shifts are happening, how people are growing thanks to whatever they're doing with a particular practitioner. And that's quite astonishing, isn't it? That we're always measuring inputs and not outcomes.
And it's astonishing also because you think you go into any other industry, or if you were to go to a garage mechanic and they had a really, you didn't know if they could actually fix your car. They'd be like, oh, I'll look at it. And I'm trained, I know how to open the bonnet of a car. And I've learned all about all the different tires that you can attach. And I know all about this stuff. It's like, well, great, but do do your tires stay on when you've added them to my car? like,
Yeah.
that's great that you know all about the tires, but are you actually delivering the results that I need?
Right.
And you think about Google restaurant reviews, and everybody's reviewing everything left, right, and center. But do we have anything like that people can turn to when they're opening up to be their most vulnerable self in a space like that? That's when they really want that kind of reassurance, and also they want to know that it's working. And since doing the ladder of growth stuff, I've been sharing that with my practitioners, and now they have tools that they're able to use to measure, track, and manage the progress they're making with clients. And what I'm noticing with the clients I'm using it with is they get really excited. They like to see where they're at the beginning, and they like to see how things are shifting. And I found that by using a way like that, that's not me telling them, oh yeah, you're doing much better this week than last week. Obviously I'm going to say that because I want them to think that we're doing great work together. I can't do that when it's them filling out one of our ladder of growth assessments. It's an independent means within the frame of our relationship. And they get very motivated. They get really want to do more. They get excited at the next set of results. So it impacts the whole dynamic and the way that they come into the work in a whole new way that I'm really excited about, because it's actually what I'm seeing is people are actually doing more at their end. They're becoming more accountable because they realize that it's having an impact, and they're jumping in more feet first. And it's, I think once I start reading this, maybe across the last year or so, I think it's probably going to mean an acceleration in the results that I'm able to get because we're measuring. And this is not news, right? We all have heard the phrase, if you want to improve something, measure it, right? We know that.
Yeah.
Now we're able to do that. And I'm starting to see the beginnings of that coming through with the practice that I'm doing and also with my practitioners.
Yeah, and it's as important for the practitioner as it is for the client. And, there is also research that shows that, practitioners who do improve as they go through their practice are the ones that take on board feedback, and they deliberately practice getting better, or they take on board new ideas, new skills. They work on different skills. Now, obviously, sometimes the feedback might not be great, and that knocks you back a bit. But you can recover from that if you are resourceful and resourced, right?
Yeah. And I think there's an important point there, is that you can get feedback, and it might not be great feedback, but actually that's important to know, because now you can correct. Now you can address it by maybe learning another skill to deal with that, by changing how you're doing something. And there might be a little moment where you're like, take a bit of a kick to the guts, and you're like, oh my God, and your doubts can pile in, and before you know it, you feel not so great. But that's all about resilience, and that's about your emotional resilience. And so as somebody that's holding space for others, it's really important you've got a decent level of resilience. You absolutely need it to be in a good place, because you cannot be the one you have to create a safe container for somebody else to be able to open up into. So if your resilience is easily dented by somebody pointing out something you're not doing quite right, you've got some work to do there. Now, let's not beat around the bush. This is what you do for others. If you cannot be that person for others, then you shouldn't be doing this for others. You cannot hold the space for somebody else if you cannot take some criticism about your method and how not your method, but the way you're delivering your work. You need to be able to do that and act on it and address it, and not feel like it's going to sink you to the floor.
Yeah. Comes back to me falling flat on my face on the pavement. I mean, if you can be knocked back and see it as information and data and not treat it as a criticism which is going to hurt you and send you spiraling, that's the place you want to get to. So you can hold that space for anybody who's not as good at holding space for themselves as you are. And it's creating that container that we need to be doing, not two kind of two people sitting opposite each other in a room, one with a lot of problems that they're trying to get through and another one with just as many but not as visible, maybe, right? So we need to be able to stand strong so that we can hold that space for the client. And from what I see, there are some practitioners out there who could doing a little bit more work in that area.
Absolutely. And I think, and that's really important to do that work, especially when you think about the kind of things that are going to come into your practice and that you're going to need to deal with. And certainly with my work around the reproductive anxiety disorder and tocophobia, there's a lot of women that come into my practice that are sharing very difficult life situations and very difficult life experiences, traumatic. And I cannot be the person that cannot hold that for them I need to be able to receive that information and not feel it sting emotionally, not go into judgment, not do any of those things. I need to just create a space where they feel comfortable talking to me about it so that they can process it. If they are wandering into me and my processing and all of my nonsense around the thing, that's not going to, I'm not doing the right thing for my client. It's my responsibility to make sure that I am not triggered around themes for my practice. It might be things like, very difficult themes around reproductive trauma, for example. I need to have done that inner work myself so that I can hold that for them. So I think depending on the kind of work we're doing as a practitioner, we need to absolutely go there and do our deepest work so that we can hold that for others, because that's what we've signed up for, right? That's why we're there.
Absolutely. And maybe there is, we don't want to knock practitioners, we don't want to knock therapists, because people have the best intentions and are doing a lot of great work. However, it just seems that you don't know quite where it's all landing, and why not do some work on yourself first, make sure that you are able to hold all of that, and secondly, start tracking what's going on.
And one of the reasons, a really important reason that we haven't touched on, I think it's worth saying, is that, there's a lot of burnout in these professions.
Yeah.
And that burnout is coming from carrying all of this material.
Absolutely.
And not processing and not giving it an exit. So as you're carrying a lot of your own material and then you're getting this stuff coming in through your clients or your patients, now they're adding more material to you, and you're now processing because you've got poor energetic boundaries because you haven't done that inner work. Now you've got their stuff piling on top of your stuff. No wonder you've got burnout coming, because you're carrying a lot. Whereas if you've done that personal work, that means that when your clients are bringing in their heavy material, you don't walk away and carry that out with you. You are able to leave that in the session and it doesn't leak into your own system. And that is what enables you to keep coming back time and time again and not have burnout and maintain a safe space for your clients.
Yeah.
So it gives you the longevity in the career and not feel like you just want to pack it all in. So it's, there's so many reasons why it's important to do that inner work, mainly for the client, right? That's what you're there to do, but also for your own fulfillment and your own, like, to be able to stay doing the work that you've chosen to do because you want to help others, right?
Right. Yeah. And that energetic boundary is so important. I've worked with energy, doing what people might call energy healing for a long, long time. And, somebody asked me once, well, doesn't it tire you out? No, it doesn't.
Yeah,
if anybody working with energy says it tires them out, it's because they don't have that strong energetic boundary, right? It's leaking. It should not be, it should not be tiring you out. If anything, it energizes me.
Yeah, I feel totally energized, even when it's a difficult session in terms of the material being difficult or heavy. That doesn't make me feel heavy.
Right.
And at the end of it, my client, we all leave lighter.
Yes.
So the material, the nature of the material should not dictate the heaviness of the session. And actually, sessions shouldn't feel heavy.
No, no.
That's my experience anyway. I've dealt with some very heavy material. And I think, yeah, the energetic bound, and I think this is what leads to burnout for so many, is that they don't have that energetic boundary, which means they're taking that stuff home. And if you're doing that
Right.
day in, day out, that is obviously going to wear you down. And we don't want that for practitioners, because we need our practitioners to have these strong boundaries, because the world needs fantastic therapists right now. And what we're trying to do here is help you to be the best practitioner that you can be, so that the rest of us have got a fantastic group of people to go to that can really help us in a meaningful way. That's what we ultimately want, right? But whereas
Yeah.
if those people that are trained to do this have got a burning out and want to leave the profession and they can't handle it because of this, then we're all in trouble.
Yeah, we absolutely are. We need, yeah, we need more people who can really handle it and help others. And yeah, so I think that probably brings us to the close nearly of this
Yeah.
episode. What do you think? Do you want to add anything else? That was a good
No,
point
I
on the
think
energetics.
we've explored this one really well, and I'd be really interested to hear what other people think. And
Yeah,
obviously, there's going to be some people that might fiercely disagree with some things we're saying, and we're like, yeah, let's have a conversation about it, because this is about a conversation. And yes, there might be things that we don't all agree on, but how can we move this forward if we don't explore these ideas and flesh it out, thrash it out? That's what we're all about. Okay, so
yeah.
do come and comment on the Substack. Let us know what you think. Always ready to hear your views.
Yeah, and it's so contact us on LinkedIn as well. So JJ Stenhouse and Alexia Leachman, we're both on LinkedIn. We'd love to hear what you have to say, and comment on anything that we post on LinkedIn. Speak to us through Substack, comment on Substack, and you'll find us elsewhere on social media as well. But yeah, let us know. And so for our sit spot this episode, I think the thing to do is maybe just sit down for a few minutes and just think on past sessions you've had with a practitioner or a therapist, if you've ever had any. Some people might not have, but see if you can think of the one thing that actually helped you move through what it was that you wanted to work through. Was it the practitioner? Was it their energy? Or was it the method? And
Mm,
just see how that feels for you.
yeah.
But for now, until next time, while you think of that, it's a goodbye from me. Thank you very much for listening and watching. And Alexia, goodbye from you.
Bye. See you next time.